Manish. Good to see you. Welcome to this episode of Vartalap. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Aman, and good to see you after a long time. It's good to
Yes,
connect again.
yes, after 8 years. So, for my listeners, Manish is a thoroughbred professional, over 20 plus years of work experience in automotive and IT industry. He has been associated with Ford for 15 plus years. He led Ford Technology Services unit in Gurgaon as general manager for 3 plus years. And currently, he's leading mobile products and application development out of Chennai. Anything that you wish to add to your profile, Manish?
No, it's been an interesting journey. So I've been with the automotive industry throughout my career. Had about 9 years stint with General Motors,
Okay.
and then close to about now 15 years with Ford. It's
Okay.
been a great journey. I've seen both sides, the mobility business that I'm associated now and the automotive division earlier. So yes, it's been fun.
Yeah, and fortunately, I worked at both the companies. So General Motors was a client of IBM, so I worked in Detroit, and then fortunately with Ford and with you as well. So it's been a blessing. You worked close to 20 years or more than that in automotive industry, and at the moment we are at a cusp of seeing a revolution in technology. There is electrical vehicles which are becoming more prominent, with countries like China and US taking a lead. Where do you see India going from internal combustion engines? Is it more hydrogen fuel cell based or is it more electrical vehicle based? What will be the trend in India?
Yeah, so the whole automotive industry, I would say, is going through a transformation right now.
Hmm.
Globally there is a thinking process going in terms of changing from internal combustion to alternate fuel.
Yeah.
Electric vehicle definitely is a big change that is coming our way, and I don't think so. India as a country is immune to it. I think we will be exposed to the electric vehicle
Hmm.
because it does help with the environmental challenges that we are having.
Yeah.
It is also convenient in terms of noise pollution, in terms of the other features, the connected features it brings, which
Yeah.
helps with a lot of capabilities that the vehicle brings from an ecosystem perspective.
Yeah.
Um, I think the challenges we'll have is the infrastructure, our ability to bring the charging station,
Hmm.
the anxiety of how would we address the charging cycle for the vehicle, and just the power availability in
Hmm.
terms of how do we bring the power there, because we are still connected through our traditional coal-based power station.
Right.
So while we shift the carbon footprint from the city, but we'll be moving it to another point where we'll be generating. So our ability to generate nuclear power and alternate, power station will be another challenge that we'll have, because these are heavy investment. But I think the desire to be an electric vehicle, the capabilities that the electric vehicle brings in terms of connectivity is something that we will be seeing. And I keep reminding myself that there was a time when we used to wait a long time to get a phone connection.
Yeah.
As a citizen, and then when mobile came, no one wanted the copper cable phone connection,
Yeah.
and now it's like given free, right? So we
Yeah.
we skipped the whole generation of copper cable phone.
Yeah.
So similarly, I think electric vehicle will also help us address a lot of our challenges that we have. But we may see electric vehicle not in our cars as we think about it.
Yeah.
We may see in buses and the three wheelers faster
Yeah.
than we see in the passenger vehicle segment.
So, why is there so much inclination towards electric vehicle? And the reason I say that is a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle can probably go with a 5 minute charge to about 640 kilometers. And Hyundai has those models. Electric vehicle with heavier battery, with heavier vehicle size can probably go 480 kilometers. So why is there so much inclination and hype towards electrical vehicles and not hydrogen fuel cell based?
See, the price point is a very important factor, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
If you look at our basic volume that we sell in India
Hmm.
is in a segment which is the B and B plus segment, which is your Swift Desire and that segment.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
um, so when you look at new technology, they don't come cheap. They come at a price point which is, even today, if you look at it, the electric vehicles which are available are all 10 lakh plus in India, right? And go up to 25 lakhs. How many people can really afford it to buy those kind of vehicles? So it is in a very small segment until it doesn't become a price point which is affordable for the mass. The take rate is going to be very, very less. So while hydrogen cell, fuel cell does provide a lot of advantage, and I think eventually that is where the automotive industry will end up. Unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball which says I can give you a time frame for that. But my personal belief is that eventually that is where the mass vehicle transportation, if I look at the buses and I look at the trucks, will move to. But at this point, I think the price point is just too expensive to do the conversion. And the ICE engine, the traditional internal combustion engine, provides a price point at which you can get to the mass, which is the key point. So that's where I think it'll be difficult to make that shift. But eventually it is unavoidable. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
So in the Indian context, when do you see there would be a trigger in terms of maybe a policy decision which the government makes, or starts creating infrastructure for electric vehicles, that maybe the price point goes further down by these automotive sellers? Will they wait for some sort of a policy document to come out or infrastructure to be created before you see maybe a larger exponential growth of these electric vehicles or hydrogen fuel cell vehicles?
So, I mean, for anything to be successful, there are three legs of things to go success. One is the government itself, right? The policies that are created, the incentives that are given. The second is the private players who take these policies and make credible solution. And third is the citizens itself who are ready to adopt it. So when these three things come together, any new technology can be successful. So if I look at what is going to make India adopt electric vehicle more, is two things. One is our dependency on oil is very high today, right? And a lot of our foreign exchange actually goes in importing oil. This is a big problem area for the government, and they are seriously thinking about reducing that dependency. So electric vehicle does give that opportunity to do. But electric vehicle also comes with a lot of headache in terms of our dependency on countries to import the batteries technology. We don't have that much of battery technology. So you're changing the dependency from oil to other countries which are dependent on battery. So how do we encourage our industry to really shape up to help on that battery independent? So we build our local capability. Second will be charging. And fast charging would be the key, because I think, if I look at passenger segment, a lot of our houses are not designed for independent garage where you can have your own charging station. So if you're living in multiple, flats, high-rise buildings, it's not very convenient. A lot of our people in mega cities, if you look at the tier 1 cities and tier 2 cities, they even have parking on the road. So in these kind of circumstances, it becomes very difficult to provide a charging station. So government will have to really think about the whole parking solution, the way we charge our vehicle. And then I think the whole, how do we scrap our batteries? How do we ensure that our environment is clean once we have that? How do we have power station that can generate that much of power and meet the demand that is going to come up? So these are some of the challenges, but I think the benefit of moving away from oil dependency is a great opportunity for us to bring that. And I think the connected vehicle, because electric vehicle, because the battery management system is connected through them, brings a lot of value addition that we can add, and the whole ecosystem that the software industry can create on top of it from a user experience perspective. So there are a lot of opportunities for us, but there are some blockers that we need to first overcome.
Sure. So moving away a little bit from technology towards mobility, how are automotive companies seeing this competition, which is going to come from something like Hyperloop? Is it something which will impact what happened with shared mobility coming from Ola or Uber? Will the automotive companies be able to react to something like this?
So, see, mobility I see has always been the pillar of human progress,
Yeah.
right? The whole civilization, if I look back, how humans have progressed.
Yeah.
Mobility has played a huge role in that.
Yeah.
And mobility has 2, 3 fundamental data points. One is convenience. The other is price at which you do per kilometer travel.
Yeah.
And the third thing is safety.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you bring certain capabilities, like Ola and Uber brought convenience at a lower cost compared to vehicle ownership, right?
Yeah.
So it had some ingredients which made it successful.
Yeah.
Right now, if you look at, because of this pandemic, a lot of people are going to move away and look at safety. Safety will become a very important factor in it.
Yeah.
So these are changes that we need to think through. So when I look at new technologies like Hyperloop, Hyperloop definitely helps a lot in terms of reducing speed.
Yeah.
Okay, time to travel.
Yeah.
With the speed that they have, it will be good to connect cities, which will reduce our dependency on air travel.
Yes.
Because today, if you look at it, the biggest industry that has got impacted with this COVID stuff is the air industry.
Right.
Right? No one is ready to jump into a plane and go to another city.
Yeah.
But I think the metros and the trains are the one which will probably take on much faster than the airplanes. So considering that, I would say Hyperloop will be a great opportunities to connect cities. But what will also work is how do we do the last mile and the first mile connection? If you look at some of the metros that we have today, they don't have the footfall because we've not really thought about the first mile and the last mile connection appropriately.
Yeah.
So some kind of planning would be required, but I think it's a great alternative. It's very early to talk about Hyperloop. I don't know the price at which we develop it, the cost of running it. So these are some of the factors that we need to think through. But it does provide a lot of convenience. It provides a lot of speed and an alternate to air travel, which we never had.
Yeah, but wouldn't it also impact the volumes of automotive companies? I mean, if you talk about last mile connectivity and mobility as a service, so going from city to city is one part of it, but then connecting it to interior parts where somebody might be residing or might have his office, that needs to be fulfilled as well. So will it impact the volumes as well for automotive companies?
I don't have too much knowledge on Hyperloop in terms of how it will be within this intra-city travel.
Okay.
Because the speed at which it travels, short distance may not be very convenient. Where you get and short distances, people don't expect to pay a lot of money for the travel. Right. So per kilometer range of how much you have the cost and how much you can recover, the economics is too early to predict.
Sure.
I still feel with the population we have, where I think only about 20% of our population is still having a car ownership compared to 80-90% in Western world.
Yeah.
There's still room for automotive to play. Only thing I feel is that the way we design the car of future may not be similar to the cars that we think about today. And I think autonomous vehicles may become another reality of life, coming faster than what we think, which will provide the automatic connection. Like you will have the pods and the capsules, which can be used to connect people for shorter distance. And then people could have Hyperloop to go to the larger distance, which could provide a great, convenient, and a cost-effective way to travel. But again, these are hypotheses that we need to validate through experiments. The whole, mobility as a service is going through a lot of experiments right now. Some are successful, some are not. So I assume that the brains behind the world on mobility are thinking through and putting this together. But I see a great opportunity for Hyperloop to play in the mobility area in future.
So when we talk of mobility as a service, people talk of a single card wherein you can use a metro, bus, tram, or something like that. where do automotive companies fit into something like this for a country like India? I believe there was some card launched maybe a few months back, which was talking about the shared mobility or mobility as a service in some select cities of India. Where do automotive companies fit into something like that?
So, if you talk about Ford, Ford is a primarily an automotive company. We design cars, we sell cars, we service cars, right?
Yeah,
So a lot of question comes up then, why are we going into the mobility space?
yeah,
The reason in the mobility space is it's a good data point to kind of understand what the demand of the future is going to be. And it's speculation at this stage because we compare mobility with the data point that we have, which is ownership of car and then shared mobility using a vehicle, which was actually designed for a passenger for your own convenient drive.
right,
You're converting that vehicle to use it for a shared mobility like Ola and Uber, right?
yeah,
But these cars were never designed for that. That's if you look at the percentage utilization of a personal car,
yeah,
it's not more than 5%.
right,
95% of the time, your car is either standing in your home parking or your office parking or a mall parking or a cinema hall parking. Somewhere it's standing.
yeah,
When you actually use at the running in the on the road, it's not more than 5%.
yeah,
Um, Shared mobility, taxis and all that, they take it to about 25-30% utilization.
yeah,
Okay. But these vehicles are not designed for that kind of thing. So where we're gonna do is we're gonna understand the data point in terms of what the requirements of the users are going to be for the future, what this whole business model is going to be, and
yeah,
how do you design the cars that are suitable for that business model, purpose built
yeah,
for shared mobility rather than use a general purpose vehicle for a business model. So that's
yeah,
where I think these models are going to be very interesting.
mm-hmm.
We're very early stages of mobility and shared mobility. So we're going to shape that with specific data points that are suitable for future. And I think the autonomous vehicle, which will eliminate the driver,
Yeah,
is all based on about 80 to 85% utilization. So now
right,
you can see that those vehicles which will be designed for 85% utilization that can run day and night will be very different from
yeah,
a vehicle which is designed for 5% utilization.
right. Okay, so you talked about business models. How do you see those are getting impacted in terms of being able to sell a car, a part, or a service? How are they getting impacted in these digital times that we live in?
So if I look at the components of a internal combustion engine,
Mm-hmm.
today's vehicle, there are more than 4,500 parts,
Okay,
okay, which are mechanical parts and moving parts that we
okay,
have.
right,
That is significantly reduced with the electric vehicle, which
mm.
has 4 motors and a battery,
Yeah,
right? And few more components. But if I look at the mechanical part, they're very, very less.
yeah,
So your maintenance and your downtime reduces significantly.
okay,
Okay? Which means that you don't have to go to the dealership for service that frequent that you would take a normal a petrol vehicle or a diesel vehicle.
right,
Uh, that also means your after sales business is going to be very different
yeah,
than what it is today, right?
right,
And it's no hidden fact that the automotive companies have a huge revenue from the after sales business,
exactly, yeah,
right? So the whole business model is going to change. Today we are dependent on dealers for a lot of sales process,
yeah,
and the whole relationship with the customer is through the dealership.
right,
That is going to change in future. As a matter of fact, the early signs of moving to e-commerce selling cars online
yeah,
and the servicing cars at home has
yeah,
already started
yeah,
thanks to COVID. That is
yeah,
pushing and accelerating the whole plan, right?
okay,
And then if you look at autonomous vehicle, the business model is not about selling the vehicle.
yeah,
Okay, it will be selling vehicle as a service,
right,
which means that the fleet will be owned by a big fleet aggregator like Ola or Uber,
yeah,
or it will be even managed by the OEM themselves.
okay,
Okay, which means that the vehicle will be not sold but provided as a service. That may change the way that the whole dealership model is of the future.
exactly,
That may even change the whole after sales and the parts business.
yeah,
That may change the whole way we think about the automotive business.
yeah,
And just to kind of give a example, um, I see the automotive business of future
mm-hmm.
more like the airline industry.
Okay,
Okay, where today when you book a ticket
mm-hmm.
for airline, because you don't want to buy a plane. You just buy a seat on the plane to go to a destination.
Right.
You didn't think about whether it's a Boeing or it's an Airbus.
Right.
Okay, you're more worried the data points that you have in making the seat selection or the ticket that you're buying is based on convenience
Yeah.
of time.
Yeah.
It's based on the price point.
Yeah.
It's based on what additional services are offered by the airlines.
Yeah.
It's about the ecosystem.
Right.
The plane is also somewhere in the whole process, but plane is not the part of the airline industry that people make decision on.
Right.
In the future, that's how people are going to make decision about traveling. They
Yeah.
will not worry about the car, the brand of the car,
Yeah.
but the whole ecosystem.
Right.
And that's where the technology will play a very important part in creating that ecosystem, where
Yeah.
people are making decision about traveling based on the convenience it provides rather than the vehicle itself.
Right. Sure. I mean, these are interesting times, and as you said, I mean, I as a consumer might not want to own a car. I'm just fulfilling my need of going from place A to place B. So that is coming up, and possibly it will impact the automotive companies the way they sell, and after sales service will be surely impacted with it as well. So one last question, Manish, and this is something about data. I mean, we live in the data age. We live in the sensor world. We live in IoT world. I was at a show in Las Vegas. It was an invite from Computer Associates, where somebody connected to the car with his mobile, was able to open it, close it, and even able to drive it from their mobile. And those things are happening as we speak now. In terms of data security, how are automotive companies looking at something like this? I mean, EU has GDPR norms now in place. A country like India are also thinking about data protection. How are automotive companies looking at something like this? Somebody being able to hack into my phone and being able to drive my car, that can become a reality.
Absolutely. Cybersecurity is one of the biggest challenge of a connected vehicle business
Yeah.
because now you are open to so many vulnerability, right? The bigger challenge is not about what you can do to control the systems that you are developing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and by that I mean if as Ford Motor Company we are developing a connected vehicle,
Yeah.
we have the ability to define the whole ecosystem around the vehicle.
Yeah.
We have the ability to decide what data can come into the car and what data can go to the car and who have access to it. We can define that.
Yeah.
The problem starts is that the connected vehicle lives in an ecosystem.
Yeah.
It means the user is now, the user would like to connect his phone, his wearables, multiple phones, multiple network. So now when you start living in the ecosystem, it's the cybersecurity of the ecosystem that is going to be the challenge.
Right.
Okay. So that makes it a lot more challenging than your connected vehicle itself, because now you have to worry about vulnerability that you don't have control over.
Right.
Okay. So that's where I see the bigger challenge for automotive industry is trying to develop a system which is so safe and secured that it works in the ecosystem as much as it would work in your system.
Right.
Okay. But it's going to be a challenge. And I think this will be one area where automotive industry will be spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of partnerships are going to happen. You can't do it alone.
Yeah.
So we'll be looking at a lot of partners who can bring that kind of capability to help us.
Yeah.
And there will always be challenges. I mean, we've been with computers now for more than 40 years, and we still don't have permanent fix for viruses and hacking activities that are happening. So it's a continuous development process that's going to happen. But I just feel, we have to live with it. And we have to be ahead of the problem, and we can't do that alone. So that's where the partnerships are going to be defined. And that's where I think, companies will need to redefine themselves as software companies rather than the hardware companies.
Exactly. That's the thing that I was looking for. I mean, every company is becoming software centric. We talk about open API architecture. When banks talk about it, it sounds scary. For automotive companies, it's a norm as well. Everybody going into an open API microservices world where they want to partner with third-party apps who use their data. So we live in that time where cybersecurity has become more pervasive, I'll say. Okay. It was a great conversation, Manish. Pleasure to hear about so many things from you. Great perspectives. I'm sure our listeners will also love to hear some of it. And I'll be happy to pass on any follow-up questions which come up. Thanks for your time today. Wish you a great Sunday evening.
Thanks, Aman. It was a pleasure talking to you and sharing some of my perspective on things. Again, I'm also learning. I mean, this is such a fast moving area and such an interesting area that things are changing. And, with the challenges we have in hand, we also have a lot of opportunities to redefine things.
Right.
So it's very interesting times. I think the next few years are going to define the future of mobility.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to be part of it. And share that with your viewers. I hope this conversation gives some thought-provoking ideas for people to think, and some new ideas get generated. I think that will be a great contribution to the journey. But it's a pleasure, and I want to thank you for such a novel idea that you're bringing in terms of bringing different thought leadership in different areas, having that conversation, and then letting the larger people go through it and understand it and get motivated with it. So good, great job, Aman. Keep doing it, and all the best to you.
Thanks, Manish. Thanks a lot. I'll be happy to have you on a panel discussion someday, and I'm looking forward to that in very near future as well. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Look forward to it.
Bye.
All right. Good night. Bye.